You're listening to Never Heard of It, a Night Shift Radio production. We're just clapping now? Is that what we do? We're just clapping out of nowhere?
It's funny because she's often in my lap at the start of an episode because I wonder if it was working from home or if it was recording the podcast that started this trend. But basically, as soon as she hears me like sit down at the computer and start talking, she immediately has to be in my lap.
She's like, time to go.
I'm fairly positive she doesn't understand screens because we've tried to get her to like FaceTime with each other, like if Ellen and I have been traveling, or like if we're talking to a family member or whatever, and she just kind of like looks all around it but never really at it.
Yeah.
But I think she understands that she's getting attention.
So she understands that, and that's kind of all that matters, really.
She either understands that she's getting attention, or she understands that I'm giving my attention to someone else, and that can't stand.
Unacceptable.
Unacceptable. So she frequently starts the episode in my lap, and so she's been through the clap to synchronize the audio sevens of times at this point, but this time it startled her.
That's funny. It reminds me of that scene in Fifth Element, when at the very end, once they're like waiting and the Earth's about to explode, and they finally put all the stones in place, and Lilu does her thing, and then it's like all quiet, and then the one guy was like, "Yeah," and Chris Tucker was like, "What the hell's wrong with you, man? Every 5 seconds there's a bomb or something. I'm out of here." And, what the hell's wrong with you? It's hilarious. Speaking of ending the world, hello and welcome to the Never Heard of It podcast at the end of the world. I'm your host, Michael Fight.
And I am Caleb Coyson Wells.
This is just too good not to do. So as you've seen, we are doing the episode for a film called Brave New Jersey, which just looks delightful. I mean, it is delightful. It was a delightful movie.
Yeah. I'm going to go ahead and say right at the beginning that to me, this is a recommended watch. This was one of the rare, like actual, like quality films, like well made, start to finish, and like we're going to talk shit because that's what we do. But realistically, this is a good one.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those films where the source material and the actors involved in it, like if you look at the actors that are involved and you know the type of things they've been in before, you'd be like, oh, this movie's going to be wild. But it's actually like a pretty good, like it's just a good, solid film. Like it deep dives into some really cool things, talking about like, taking chances, like changing your life, like not needing an apocalyptic event in order to do the things that you want to do, or, things that are important to you. Following your heart, so to speak. I think everybody in it learns that specific lesson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as of the recording of this, it is the last Sunday in April. You'll be hearing this the second week in May, if all goes well. At this point, we've come to realize that some of the worst of the jokes that we made back in late February are starting to come true, and life's getting weird. So we are continuing on with the theme of Apocalypse May. And of course, in the real life drama. So I feel like for the most part, the demographic of people who listen to this podcast are probably aware of the story. But if you're not, back in 1938, Orson Welles, the famous director and writer and whatnot, decided to produce a radio drama of H.G. Wells's The War of the Worlds, the 1898 sci-fi classic of Martians invading Earth and killing a bunch of people with like death rays and shit. So he presented this as a radio drama back in the glory days of old time radio, something that we here at Night Shift Radio appreciate and are working to bring back through the Storyteller series that you may have heard about. So there's a little shout out to that. Yeah. So he produced it through the Columbia Broadcasting Company, which I believe is the what we now know as CBS.
I believe so. Yeah,
I think that they're still around in that form. The ones who bring us the wonderful new Star Trek series is this, and October 30th, 1938. So the world has come through the First Great War, the Great Depression, and we're on the brink of World War II. And it's a weird time in the late 30s in the U.S. And everyone's getting ready for Halloween that year, and wondering, is war on the horizon again in reality? And then one night, this radio broadcast comes on, and it's announced as such. We bring you the Columbia Broadcasting Service brings you H.G. Wells's War of the Worlds. And they launch into this whole narrative of the story of War of the Worlds, but presented as though it's a live news broadcast in a time when your live news broadcast was brought to you over the radio. So if you tuned in just a little too late to miss the introduction of this, and seemingly they did it without commercial interruption, which is actually quite surprising. If you tuned in just a little too late, you might think that the radio was bringing you some very important late-breaking news about shit getting fucked up in the state of New Jersey. And so there's a little bit of a mythos around this event happening, that it caused a widespread panic, and that people genuinely believed that we were being invaded because they had no way at the time to refute that. But Michael, you were saying just before we hit record that that might not actually be true.
Yeah, so the current rumor or the story behind it is that during the broadcast, there was a very popular series called The Chase and Sanborn Hour with Edgar Bergen that played kind of overlapping to this on a different station, and it's very often that what happens is there's musical interludes throughout this specific radio drama, and so during that time, people would often swap through the channels just like you do at a commercial break nowadays. Well, I guess used to do when live TV was a thing. Now that's not true. Really like a full-on thing. But used to, change the channel when a commercial came up, see what else was on. So the current story is that people would, when the first musical interlude hit, they swapped over to this other story, which was part of what the Mercury Theater on the Air section. And so when they flopped over to it, they had missed the intro where it basically was saying, hey, this is just a dramatization. This is just a fun little story. And here we go. So what they hear is what sounds like an actual news report of this, place in Grover, New Jersey, getting Grover's Mill, New Jersey, getting seemingly invaded by aliens and shit going down. And so the original story is that thousands of people, tens of thousands of people heard this and just panicked across the country. But the fact of the matter is that there's a couple of things with this that more modernly we've learned. One is that the Mercury Theater on the Air actually had relatively low listenership, and that it was very unlikely that not only did anyone actually tune in to the original broadcast, but it's very unlikely that when they did, they probably heard the intro at some point, or since this is 1938 and H.G. Wells' story came out only 30 years previously.
Words are hard.
It's, English. I talk to like my dog now. I don't have any in my house for a month and a half. But yeah, so is that people were familiar with this story. So once they start listening to it, they either, one, recognized the story right off the bat, or two, knew that this program was a dramatization program that had these sort of things on there. So the current, now more accepted theory is that, in fact, very few people, if any, actually accepted this as real. However, the station itself did get many calls about this production, not because of people thinking it was real, but they actually got calls about it thinking that it was too dramatic for radio. Get that?
Interesting.
And that's kind of what got Orson Welles to be so famous as a dramatist, is that this was such a real production, and that he put so much time and effort into it that it seemed too real. In fact, that most people said that it seemed too scary for a story. So that's probably where kind of the myth went of people freaking out about this. But I remember, like, in college, I went to college for film, and this
big
was
man went to college.
What a loser! What a waste of money that was, right? Well, when I went to college, it was not as expensive as it is now, so I guess it wasn't really that waste of money.
That's true.
But we studied about this. We talked about this and the effect of news stories and sensationalism and stuff like that. So it's great. I mean, it's a great story in all aspects. It's a great story about the broadcast, and the broadcast itself at the time, in the H.G. Wells story, was just an amazing story. So,
well, and I think the biggest tragedy out of all of this is the idea that the Mercury Theater on the Air would have low listenership, because any presentation I've heard by that company has always been just a good time. And I mean, I love the old time radio dramas. I used to listen to them, driving around in my car. Those were one of the few things where, like, people talk about, like, you'll get home and sit in your car and listen to the radio just a little bit longer to finish the show or whatever. That's one of the few things that I would, I'd get to my destination and be like, I can't stop now. Like, does Roger kill her?
Like, I need to know.
Was Lorraine the murderer?
Yeah, no, I used to listen to these sort of things with my mom. She listened to them growing up to a degree, in the early 60s. So, like, I love these. I love radio theater. It was one of the reasons why I wanted to create the Storyteller Series podcast, was for this sort of aspect. But yeah, so I think though that this was kind of one of the things that kind of catapulted the Mercury on the Air Theater. I think that's what kind of helped it grow, was the amount of press that came out because of this. And a lot of that, I think, has to do with, that sort of all press is good press, bad press is good press, and no press is bad press. And I think that's, kind of where this came from, is people were now tuning in to see what ridiculousness they would do next.
So the movie Brave New Jersey essentially is a story of what could have happened in a small town in rural southern New Jersey in the late 1930s, being caught unaware by this broadcast, and panic ensuing. And so begins episode 2 of Apocalypse May. So we open in the small town of Lullaby, New Jersey, which I did a quick Google search for, and the only results I got were for this movie, so I'm assuming it's fictionalized. Mm-hmm. But we see the town's mayor, Clark. I forget his last name. Clark Hill?
Clark Hill. Yep, Mayor Hill.
Mayor Clark Hill, played by Tony
Hale,
who many people will instantly recognize from his role in Arrested Development, but fairly well-known gentleman. The town's mayor is out painting the sign at probably one of only 3 intersections in the entire county, and he's updating it. It's a family-friendly town for where everyone is welcome, or something like that, the sign says. And he's painting it to say the home of the rotolactor. Now, what is the rotolactor, you might ask? Well, the rotolactor actually plays a fairly pivotal role in this movie, and we'll get to that. But the name is it's the epitome of, like, invented in America, like a goofy ass fucking name. This is a real device. So it seems like it might have been fictionalized for this movie. Despite the fact that the opening narration for the movie makes sure that you're aware that everything that's about to happen was completely true. The rotolactor was true. It was an invention made by the Borden Company, who you may know from their ice creams and their milks and whatnot. That was the first invention for milking a large number of cows successively and largely automatically using a rotating platform. And before anyone accuses me of plagiarism, I will cite my sources directly from the wiki article.
By a stunning coincidence, rotolactor was actually my nickname in college. So it's by pure chance that's the case. Don't ask. But yeah, the rotolactor, it's like, you always see those funny, like I think back to shows like Ren and Stimpy, where they had like those fake products, like the guy would go door to door selling rubber nipples and, stuff like that. And it was just like the weird, where they just have like the weirdest names, but that's the type of shit that people in the 30s, like somebody came up with the name rotolactor and was like, yeah, that's the one. That's the one, Dave. This is going to knock them right out of their socks.
My favorite part of this, again, quoting from the wiki page, the rotolactor was the first invention for milking a large number of cows using a rotating platform. It was invented by Henry W. Jeffers. The rotolactor was initially installed in a, quote, lactorium, a building specifically designed for milking cows in Plainsboro, New Jersey. So, again, the reference to New Jersey is accurate, although Lullaby was not real. But can we talk about a building called a lactorium?
Listen here, son, take him to the lactorium, I tell you.
I feel like that's another odd, like, early 20th century American thing where like everything had to have a big, impressive, pseudoscientific sounding name like lactorium.
Yeah. I mean, rotolactor, lactorium, like those are all like real things too. But I completely agree. There was like this really weird like push to make everything sound futuristic, but in retrospect, it's, it just sounds dumb. But back then, somebody heard like rotolactor and was like, ooh, it's like we're straight out of the 50s.
It just calls to mind the like tweed suited door to door salesman.
Yes. Why every boy and girl around here likes a rotolactor, let me tell you. Why you don't want to go home to the missus without a rotolactor.
You can't go home without a rotolactor.
I mean, what kind of jackass are you?
She'd send you packing.
Now, Jim, you go back and get your rotolactor.
So that actually brings us to our next set of main characters here. Paul in the Rain Davison. Now, Paul is a fairly well-to-do and well-known businessman here who has been his dairy farm, I guess, or some sort of business, has been selected to showcase this first rotolactor here. And so it was he that commissioned the change to the town sign that was supposed to say chosen to be the home of the rotolactor. But, Clark, he can't quite do anything right. He tries, but he just can't quite do it. And so he's getting ready to throw a big old festival for the whole town. Everyone's going to be there. There's going to be fireworks and the press, and everyone's just all excited about his contribution to the milking arts or something.
The great poetic art of milking a fucking cow. So Paul is played by Sam Yeager, who Yeager. I'm going to say Yeager. Yeah. So Sam Yeager is, you might recognize him. He's been in a few things. He was Agent Flatweed in Inherent Vice, but he was also the Nick Fisher, the original Nick Fisher in Lucky Number 11, which is an amazing film. If you've never watched, you absolutely need to watch Lucky Number 11. Great film. And he's also in The Handmaid's Tale as Mark Tuello's one of the main characters as well. And he was in Shazam as Friend. That was it.
He's uncredited.
Right. But his wife, Lorraine, who is played by Heather Burns, she's been in lots of comedy movies you'll recognize her from, but she was actually in my favorite movie of all time, You've Got Mail, starring Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan. She plays Christina in that, which is one of the workers at Meg Ryan's shop around the corner. And You've Got Mail is, it's one of the best movies ever made. So
she's in a bunch of rom-coms.
Yeah, she's been around. I recognized her right away. I was like, I know her, but she's been in a lot of big ones.
2 Weeks Notice, Manchester by the Sea, Miss Congeniality.
Yep. Yeah, all the good Sandra Bullock ones. I mean, all rom-coms are this. But yeah, no, she's been a good. So yeah, we meet Lorraine and Paul, and right off the bat, we get the impression that Paul is kind of a douche.
Paul's an absolute dick.
Yeah.
And like you see, he's getting ready. He's tying his tie. He's checking himself up in the mirror, and she brings in the paper for him to read, and she points out the best parts about how his contributions, how they're going to be celebrating, and he's just like, well, of course. And then he's like, do me a favor, shine my shoes. And Ellen was just immediately like, fuck you, dude.
Right. It's just like, but she's got that 1930s gonna, please my husband vibe to her. So she's okay. And off she goes, happily shining the shoes, kind of daydreaming at the time. So
she does give him a little gift though to show, just celebrate the occasion. And he opens it up, and it's a little souvenir statue of the Empire State Building. We learn later that she recently took herself a trip to Manhattan. We'll find out why. But she brought this back for him. Thought he'd be excited about it. And of course, he does the, just what I wanted. A toy statue of the Empire State Building. Boy, aren't you swell, honey. Fuck you.
Fuck you, dude. Come on. What a twat. But yeah, so we meet that character, and then we do get to meet a couple other characters. So one of the characters we meet is the Reverend, who just
phoning it in.
Yeah, so Reverend Ray Rogers, who is played by Dan Beckedal, who was also in Veep along with Tony Hale, and he's been in what else was he in? He's in the show The Goldbergs. And a couple other things, but pretty much Veep is probably his biggest one that most people, I would say, recognize. But so the Reverend is absolutely phoning it in 100%. He's kind of like, I don't know. And, somebody quotes a Bible quote to him, and he was like, something the 31st. They were like, no, it's Jeffrey's this. And he was like, oh, I always get those confused. It's just, he
rolls up late to church on his bike on Sunday morning, and then just walks in and is like, let's get started with I don't know. And he flips through the Bible and points to the verse how about this one? And just reads it. That's a good one. Anybody got any others?
Yeah.
Wow.
Any other suggestions? And then we get to meet someone that is from a movie both Caleb and I love, is Anna Camp, who is, of course, she plays one of the people in the, in the thing, Peg Pickett. But Anna Camp, of course, plays Aubrey in the Pitch Perfect series. So
she's just wonderful.
She is just wonderful. But Aubrey, so Anna Camp was also in the series True Blood, which was an HBO series about vampires. I do say. And but yeah, she actually played one of the Reverend's wife in that one, and she's absolutely fantastic in it. And she's in a season and a half. And then you don't see her for a bunch of seasons, and then she comes back, and you're like, why is this bitch here again? Because she's a terrible person in the thing. But if you haven't watched True Blood and you like trashy, sexy vampires, HBO, I think it's still happening. It was happening a few weeks ago. HBO right now is free for a set number of series. So this, Barry, Sopranos, a couple of other shows, and a small handful of movies. are available for free on HBO right now. If you have the HBO Now or Go app, or you can watch them, I think, via Apple TV Plus as well. Allows you to watch them through there.
I'd never realized how many like fairly well-known shows that she's been in, at least for like a small part. The Office, Glee, Mad Men, there's The Mindy Project, and How I Met Your Mother. She's been in a ton of shit.
Wow. I mean, I love Anna Camp. I think she's really hilarious. I think she's also a really good character actor that's kind of underrated. And I think she fell into the same trap that a lot of actors did, is that they fell into, Pitch Perfect got so big that she fell into the like, oh, well, Anna Camp, she's got to be the bitchy, over domineering blonde who sings all the time in everything that she does. And it was kind of like, yeah, but have you seen everything else? And the unfortunate part is that if she doesn't play that, she ends up playing the like racist, preacher's wife, Southern, deep South racist preacher's wife, because that's who she played in True Blood. So it was kind of like, well, it's one or the other, but she's been in some really funny things. So it's like, it's kind of unfortunate that, you get stuck like that.
I mean, the plot sold me, but she was also one of the reasons I picked this, because she's fantastic. I'm like, well, that's probably going to at least be watchable. And I was pleased to see that it wasn't like, just a paycheck movie that was absolutely fucking terrible and she wished she could forget about. I mean, maybe she does. I don't know. But to me, was actually a worthwhile endeavor.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's a very sweet film. I wouldn't exactly call it a romantic comedy, because I feel like any romance aspect of it is small. But I think that it's just a cute movie. It's just a cute little movie. I dig it.
Yeah.
That's what I have to say about that. And then, so I think before we get too deep, let's go ahead and take a quick break. And then when we come back, we'll kick off with introduction of the characters, plots, and move on to the actual radio broadcast. So we will be right back. The Storyteller series is a podcast bringing back classic radio theater, featuring engaging storytelling delivered to you monthly. From narrated tales to character-driven stories performed by multiple voice actors, all will bring you on an audible journey. Join us at StorytellerSeriesPodcast.com or wherever you get podcasts. Hello and welcome back. What you're listening to is real. Everything that is happening right now is serious. Martians have landed over top of Graver Mills, New Jersey. Why? They followed the trail of garbage to New Jersey.
No shit. Someone had to say it. It's worth pointing out. We've mentioned Mary Clark Hill, and we've talked about Lorraine Davison and her shitty husband Paul. Well, there's definitely something, a little bit there, a little bit of a spark between Clark and Lorraine. Clark has let Lorraine borrow his copy of Gone with the Wind, which of course is a great little in joke there, because obviously the lead in the Gone with the Wind movie production was Clark Gable. And she's slowly working her way through, but you can tell that like Clark has a thing for Lorraine. He's a very timid man, but like he's definitely there. And we know that Paul Davison is a shitty person. So like, right from the get-go, you're rooting for these two scrappy young kids in their late 40s or whatever they are.
I mean, Lorraine has two tween to preteen kids. So like, this isn't a new marriage. They've been married for quite some time, at least 15 years. But yeah, Caleb's throwing shit everywhere. So we learn about this in probably a very cute romantic way, is that every time Clark does end up talking with Lorraine, and the minute she looks away, he gives this like longing, like desperation, like sick puppy look at her. And it's so sweet, but at the same time, it's so pathetic. And you're just kind of like, oh man, you've got it bad, man. It's crazy.
So the town is preparing for Halloween, and Anna Camp's character Peg, she's a a teacher at the local school, and she's engaged to a weird dude named Chardy. Yeah, you heard that right. There's a D in there. It's Chardy. Like someone was really into like Swiss chard, the green, and was like, what if I named my child after how this leafy green makes me feel? It makes me feel all chardy inside. That's this guy.
Good old Chardy.
And she tells the kids about how Halloween is the day when you can kind of release your inhibitions and be who you really want to be. And so that sets the stage fairly well. The town goes to sleep that night. It's Halloween Eve.
It's the 30th?
The 30th, yeah.
Yeah.
And so we get just the briefest glimpse of Clark. He's got the radio on just before falling asleep, and we hear the introduction. The Columbia Broadcasting Service brings you the I've already forgotten the name of it. The Mercury Theater on the Air production of Orson Welles' the War of the Worlds, and he reaches over and flips the radio off and goes to sleep, only to be awoken by the coolest old-timey telephone with someone calling him in a panic that have you not heard the news on the radio? We're being invaded.
And he's like, what is going on? What are you talking about? And so of course he is like, well, I'll go see what's happening. So off he goes into the world. Now at the same time, we get multiple people glimpses of them listening. So one of them, of course, is Lorraine and Paul. Their family is listening to it, and we get a glimpse of them kind of freaking out. And at this point, Lorraine is basically frozen in fear. So she's like, and she's just sitting there. And the dad's like, "All right, everyone, get your shit together. Like we're leaving." And so he actually runs out. Once the kids kind of snap her up, he actually runs out and gets in the car and drives off without them.
Motherfucker just leaves them there, and you see the car driving away with the what amounted to a trunk on a Model T or whatever the hell this car was. Just like flapping open, and he gets about 100 feet down the road and stops as they're standing in the road watching him drive away. He gets out and he looks at them, and then just walks back, shuts the trunk, gets in the car, and drives off. And you hear the car like sputtering and stalling on its way. I'm like, oh, he's not gonna. No, I guess he did make it. But like motherfucker just leaves them. But we get one of probably the second best town hall scene that I've ever seen in a movie like this. Second only to Don't Kill It, which was flawless.
Oh, just fucking fantastic. God. Oh, brilliant.
You have the whole town there in a panic, and they're all yelling, and they're looking to Mayor Clark for answers. And he's like, "Look, everyone, when Sheriff Dandy gets here, he'll have a plan. He'll have all the answers. I promise." Cue Sheriff Dandy, played by Mel Rodriguez, running in the side door. "Can someone tell me what the fuck is going on?"
Just absolutely brilliant, perfect comedic timing. And he was just like, all right. So earlier in the movie, Lorraine's daughter goes off, and we see her with her friends, and they're off and they're vandalizing the mailbox of one of the residents of the town, who is Sergeant or Captain. Yeah, Captain Ambrose P. something. Collins. So, and they're vandalizing his mailbox so that the P in his name spells pee like urine, and then they're going to throw water balloons filled with pee at his house as they run away. Because the story is he came back from the war, and he just, I guess, was like kind of a nutter. Everyone says like he basically went crazy for all the things, but apparently they also recognized, which is weird, is that they were like, no, he's like a war hero. Like I heard he killed, hundreds of people and blah, blah, blah. And all right, now let's throw this piss at his house. And it's really weird that they like sing his praises and then still, go off to prank him, I guess.
Children, man.
I know, right? Kids bored. This is why TV was invented. Kids were too fucking bored. But it was a very funny scene because one of the kid hands a balloon to Lorraine. He was like, "Do you want to throw it?" She's like, "Sure." And she was like, "Why is this warm?" He's like, "Oh, is this pee?" And they're like, and so the kids run and they go to throw it, and the one water balloon like explodes in the kid's hand. And he goes, "Oh shit!" Super funny. It was, but anyway, so at this point, now that we're back to where we were, all hell's breaking loose, and people know about the captain. The captain comes in and is like, "Listen here, you assholes! Like, I'm taking over. We're gonna, let's get things straight. We're gonna solve this problem and figure out what's going on." One of the other things that happens too before this is that Chardy has proposed to Peg, on a gazebo, saying, "Hey, I wanna marry you," and she's like, "Sure." So she's very much doing it because she feels like she's supposed to, right? That's kind of the impression I got, is that she was like, "Well, we've been dating, so obviously." But we learned that good old Peg likes people with weird names.
Yeah.
Because later in the film, she is caught by Chardy making out with Sparky.
Sparky. I love that there's a character named Sparky.
Named Sparky, who is played by Evan Jonikite, who I actually worked with on The Night House, and he is the coolest freaking dude in the world. Awesome. Yeah, he is such a cool guy, and he was also Toad in the new X-Men, the X-Men First Class wave of films. He plays.
Yeah, so he was.
He plays Toad, and he's been in a bunch of other things, but Evan Jonikite, great dude, super nice guy. But yeah, so Sparky, yeah.
Sparky rolls up on a tractor with his pack of cigarettes and offers one to Peg, and there's this whole really tense moment where he's like, "You want a cigarette?" She's like, I don't smoke." "Well, you might as well start now. But I've heard those things are dangerous." "Yeah, you can still smoke one." It's really weird dialogue. And she's like, "That could be your last pack." I'm like, "Are you sure you want to give it away? There's plenty more where that come." I'm not sure you're actually listening to her.
Right. Like, she is definitely concerned for your well-being, and you're like, fuck it, let's smoke.
So they sneak off to a barn and have themselves a nice little snog fest.
Indeed, they do. So all hell is breaking loose at this point. So everybody is going batshit crazy. Lorraine, finally what they've decided is that all the kids are going to go and they're going to kind of board themselves up in the schoolhouse, which is a fun little running gag, is every time somebody knocks on the door of the schoolhouse, all the kids scream. She's like, "It's just Lorraine." And she does that twice. And later she was like, "It's Lorraine again."
Because the Martians are definitely going to knock before they come in and vaporize you all.
Right. Knock, knock, clickety boom. I don't know. That's what Martians sound like. It's really weird.
No one here but us chickens.
Oh, we should go to another one. There's chickens in this place. Pew, pew. But yeah, so everyone's fucking lost their minds at this point. Everybody's running around like crazy. The Reverend is getting attacked, and people are like, "Is this God? If God loves us, why would he send Martians to us? And if God is sending Martians to us, what if the Martians are from God? Shouldn't we be visiting, like viewing them and talking to them and talking about God?" And he was like, "I don't fucking know." Like he's just lost his shit at this point. Like, I don't know. Like, I know nothing. Everything is nothing. And he eventually has like an epiphany.
There's a brilliant moment where he's like, "Just give me a sign." And he just hears crickets outside. He's like, "Are the crickets a sign? Mm-hmm. Give me another sign if the crickets are the sign." And he's like, "That's it. I knew you weren't there. You're not listening, and I'm done with you anyway." And he takes one of the offering plates and like tries to bend it, and it won't bend. So like he throws it like a frisbee, and it ricochets twice and comes back and hits him in the head. At which point he like opens his Bible to a couple of passages that like he manages to like twist to make sense to their situation, and suddenly like his eyes are open to the truthful truth.
The truest of truths. Yeah, he realizes not only is like is it okay not to have answers? But the other thing too is that he starts remembering anytime the term aliens gets used. And one of them is like, they talk about, he'll bring his army of aliens to fight. So he was like, this is what it means. So he grabs, he heads off with his two patrons.
Congregants?
Congruents?
Not congruence.
It's not congruence. It's not geometry.
No.
Religion is not related to geometry. I'm not really sure. Pythagorean's theorem, that's not in the Bible.
The best thing to come of this theme of the Bible. It took a moment to sink in.
That's good.
The best thing to come of this is like one of his I think maybe parishioners was what you were looking for.
Yes, that's the word.
Yep. One of his parishioners, Stan, has a bit of a breakdown himself and like shuts himself up in a barn and like covers himself with sacks of grain to hide. And the Reverend is able to go and like kind of talk him out of this and like convince him to like come with them and like we're all going to be safe. Like he's wrong about his reasoning, but he's right that they all end up safe and fine, that there are the Martians aren't coming to kill them. We're not going to die tonight. That part was correct. So it's Helen and Stan.
Oh yeah, Helen and
Stan. And Helen is very grateful to the Reverend for even though she sees that like he's not the man he used to be and like doesn't really believe anymore that like he found something inside of him to like reach out and lead his flock one more time to get them through a difficult time.
Yeah, and Helen, by the way, is played by Eric Alexander, who was in fucking Living Single. She played Maxine, yes. And she was also in the movie Get Out. So she's got a pretty good, and she's currently in the show Black Lightning, a CW Arrowverse show.
I thought she looked familiar.
She definitely did. I was looking at her, I'm like, I absolutely know who you are. But yeah, so Living Signal obviously was the first thing because I'm old. But then, but yeah, she was Max Shaw in Living Signal. But yeah, so they've finally got their wits about them, and they're heading off. And at this point, the captain is preparing everyone for battle. They're collecting weapons and all sorts of stuff. And he's in his element at this point because everyone thinks he's batshit crazy, but he's kind of missing the idea of leading an army and a troop. So at the same time, Lorraine's daughter is off and about with their son, and they're just kind of roaming the town. And what they learn is as they actually stumble across the captain's house, and they go inside his house and they're listening to the radio program. They like turn on the radio to like find out more information because they're like, well, we don't see, like it's a clear sky. We don't see anything. Somebody comes by while they're in a store eating ice cream, and they were like, don't go outside. There's poison gas. And they're like, there's no poison gas. So like they're starting to get really suspicious about this. So they get to the captain's house. They turn on a radio and they catch the tail end of the broadcast that talks about how this was all fake and it was part of a radio show. And, thanks for listening. And they're like, oh, and just at that moment, the captain walks in and they were like, hey, and he's like, why are you in my house? And, they explain like, hey, this is fake. And he was like, of course it's fake. Like, of course I know it's fake. And he just has that moment of like, yeah, I know. Like, and they were like, well, why are you doing this? And, he gets that moment of him of like, yeah, but don't you see what's happened in the town? Like, people need to get together. People need to have that semblance of control, whether the world is ending or not. It was a very interesting moment for him to kind of like step up because even though he knows it's fake, he's doing it because he knows it's the right thing to do.
He has this whole like, you need to live like this is your last night on earth sort of thing. Like, right, like getting people to like come to action and like do something rather than just sitting around being fearful. And it fits with the whole recurring theme of, nothing never changes unless you take a big step.
Yes.
Paraphrasing the quote that's used a few times with Paul and Clark.
Yeah, which is great because he looks back on that. Clark looks back on that quote very often. So one of the things too that at the same time that all this madness is going on, Lorraine goes back to her house and starts like rifling through things, and she stumbles across a letter. And in the letter, it says, "Dear Paul, no matter how long it takes, I will wait for you. Love, some other girl's name." And Margaret. Yep. So at this point, like, she kind of has that, like, I knew this all along, but here's my piece of evidence that obviously Paul has been two-timing her with someone by the name of Margaret, who knows that he's married and is going to wait for him to leave his family. And so she has this moment of like, oh, well, he fucking left us. So
that
obviously
must be where he went.
Yep, that must be where he went, right to her, to his other woman, left his family behind. So, we get that moment of Lorraine kind of being like, well, fuck it, then I'm going to stand up and do what's right. So, she gathers all, anything she can that's weapons. And one of the things she gets, of course, is the Empire State Building little mini thing. And there's this great moment where, the captain was like, who brought this shit? Like, this has got to be serious here. And he's, obviously shaming whoever brought that as a weapon. And Clark steps in for her because he sees her about to raise his hand. He was like, oh, that was me. I was in a panic and it's, pointy. So I thought maybe it'd be useful. And he was like, I expected better of you, Mayor. You're the mayor. We need you, on your toes. But like Lorraine has a moment of like, oh, Clark. Oh, yeah, Clark. And they do get their moment. They do get a little bit of a moment where, he kind of calls out Paul for being shitty. He kind of, he shoots his shot. And, it kind of lands. But of course, in horrendously bad timing, just as they're about to kiss, what motherfucker starts rolling on up?
Fucking Paul.
Paul, man.
I heard on the radio the whole thing's a hoax. There's no Martians, and I'm sorry. I went to get help. I didn't leave you. How could I leave you? I went to get help. I hate him. I hate him. What
a scumbag.
He's
of course,
scumbag.
So that night, shit starts going down. So the rotolactor was filled with a bunch of fireworks. There was a bunch of fireworks to them, and the rotolactor previously, in the test for announcing this big product that Paul is behind, it actually ended up catching on fire, and as a result, they had to delay their big festival to the next day. Or a couple of days later because they had to get the thing fixed. But it catches on fire again and triggers all of the fireworks that were originally set for this festival that was supposed to happen. But of course, the townspeople don't know that that's what it is. And they think, oh shit, the aliens are here. They're here now. Grab your guns.
They're prepared because the captain did some math for them based on the timing of their advance to other cities. Because of course, aliens that came however many light years or hundreds of thousands of miles. I actually don't know the distance between Mars and Earth, and you know what? I'm just not going to look it up at this point because I've already made a fool of myself. They came across all this distance, and it's going to take them several hours to get across the state of New Jersey. And so they're ready at 4:30 a.m. and nothing happens. And then all of a sudden, boom, the
fireworks just
explodes and the fireworks go off and like, this is it, everybody, let's get them. And people start like shooting their guns in the air. Like, at what?
At what? And it's like it's this slow motion battle cry where people are like running through smoke, and you see like Anna Camp's character with the thing, and she's like, rah! And all the townspeople, and they're just, so anyways, I started blasting, just running in and firing at everything.
And it's amazing because it's obviously fireworks.
It's blatantly fireworks. But I mean, it goes to the same sort of idea with, with the people believe what they want to believe. They're already hyped up at this point. They're anxious. They've been brought into like this stupor of like, oh my God, it's happening. And they're all, ugh. And then as soon as something triggers, the logical part of their brain just shuts off because they've already been like talked into this event happening. And now this is it. This is the event, so no matter what it looks like.
Yeah. So of course they do get to the rotolactor and realize what's happening, and somehow the news eventually reaches the people that all is well, and the Columbia Broadcasting Service releases an apology to anyone who may have stupidly misunderstood the radio drama for what it was and panicked, and the town starts to return to a sense of normalcy. And there's this great moment as the owner of the general store is restocking, and there's some old men sitting around jabber-jawing as they do, and talking about,
Jabber-jawing.
Curse that Collins for stirring everyone up and making everyone go crazy. And the sheriff sips his coffee. He's like, yeah, but it's nice that somebody did something around here. And just kind of looks longingly into the middle distance.
Oh, yeah. And so at this point, he goes to Lorraine and, at her house and was like, we need to talk. And she was like, okay. And so she steps outside and, he was like, so that was about to be a thing. And she was like, no, Paul was there and he was just going to get help and you didn't help things. And he's like, what the fuck? Paul comes out, of course, and he's his super, like passive aggressive, shitty self. And he was like, you'll always be there. It's gonna, can you clean up the rotolactor thing and take some measurements, because it's going to take some time, but maybe you can get some help to help you out. And he was just like, yeah, whatever needs to be done.
However long it takes.
I'll
wait for you.
I'll wait for you. Yep. And he's like, okay, but that's his jab to Lorraine of like, fucking your dude is a shitty person. But then in the end, of course, we do get our happy ending.
Yeah,
and it's wonderful.
Clark goes back to that sign that he painted, and he takes down the home of the rotolactor part and just tosses it angrily into the field. And of course, Lorraine walks up. I saw that. And she's like, I told Paul to leave. He's packing now. Of course, he already packed last night, so it shouldn't take very long.
Great line. And then they have their wonderful kiss.
Yay.
Aw, yay.
And all is well again in the state of New Jersey.
Yeah, and so Anna Camp's character, she kind of, stands up. Charlie feels like after the event, he was like, well, everything was just crazy last night, so we're going to be back together now. And she's like, no, I don't want that. And, the Reverend is now like, if I've learned anything is that we don't have all the answers and that's okay. Let's talk about that. Like maybe let's not look in the book today. Let's just talk about how you're doing. How are you feeling today? What's going on with you? So he's becoming a better, Reverend. And, the captain is out and about. The kids go and they take off the vandalism off his mailbox. So like everybody resolves. It's a wonderfully happy ending for such a sweet movie.
It's a good story.
It's a good story. I do really like it. I mean, the theme of this month, obviously last week we did Train to Busan, which did not end as well as this one.
No. And the rest of this month is a fucking shit show. Oh
yeah, it's going to be fucking wild. Maybe the last film will be the last film month will be another like kind of cute one possibly, but not anywhere near as that because obviously this is not exactly an apocalypse film, but. Cute movie, great theme, great moral of the story is, don't wait for the end of the world to follow your heart, just fucking go out and do it.
Yeah.
Except right now, don't go out anywhere do wait until the end of the world, and then go outside and do those things you always wanted to do.
Stay at home, and if you need to take your big chances, do it over an encrypted messaging service like Signal or Telegraph or something like that.
Definitely not WhatsApp.
Yeah.
Or Facebook Messenger.
And not over SMS, because not only is that insecure, but the image and video quality is going to be garbage, and you don't want that.
You don't want that. Yeah. Yeah, so absolutely, now is the time to slide into them DMs. Now, if somebody wanted to slide into a website for us, where would they go? Where would they go?
You can slide right on over to nightshiftradio.com to learn about all of our wonderful productions here at Night Shift Radio Productions. Of course, Never Heard of It, which you can also check out at thenahoit.com, where we have our upcoming schedule and trailers and whatnot, as we talk about every week. But all of our other shows. And if the idea of Orson Welles' War of the Worlds radio drama appeals to you, you might want to check out the Storyteller series, which is the newest podcast here on the Night Shift Radio Network. I think it's probably right up your alley. But, Michael, where else can they slide into to find out about us?
They also could slide right on into the Nahoit podcast. That's the NHOIT podcast on both Twitter and Instagram. So both those places, not only will you get to see clips of the current week episode, a couple of different clips, you also see trailers of upcoming episodes, links to where you can watch them, and that whole spiel. Or if you want to tweet at us or slide into our DMs.
Our DMs are open.
They are open, so definitely slide into those and tell us a movie you think we should watch. June is, it's not for a bit, but June is coming. And by the way, today is Mother's Day in America, so happy Mother's Day to all you mothers out there, and to our moms, I guess. Happy Mother's Day. And so slide into our DMs, tell us movies you like, tell us how terrible we are. If you want to complain about 3 weeks ago when the episode Here Comes Hell, where my mic was off and it was shitty audio quality, I will gladly hear it. I've already berated myself, so it's fine. I will take your abuse as well. So please. And by the way, brand new episode of the Storyteller series tomorrow. Yes. If you're listening to this on Sunday, it's tomorrow. If you're listening to this on Monday or later, it's already happened to go listen to it.
So that would be May 11th?
That would be May 11th, yeah, with Barbarians by David Farland from the ever so popular Rune Lords book series. This is a prequel to one of his new books.
Would that be New York Times bestselling author David Farland?
In fact, that would be New York Times bestselling author David Farland. Thanks a lot for joining us, guys. We super appreciate it. We hope you check out our other shows, nightshiftradio.com/shows, and we will see you next week.